Welcome back, everybody. We are here at the Fillmore in Detroit with a very special guest, Cecil Baldwin, the voice of Welcome to Night Vale. Thank you for showing up. Let's go back to the beginning. Like, how did the audition process? What was it like starting out with Welcome to Night Vale?
It was very easy in that there was no audition process. So I was working with the New York Neo-Futurists, doing late night East Village, downtown, the more you drink, the funnier we are kind of theater. And I was doing that with Meg Bashwiner and Jeffrey Craner. Were in the company as well. And Joseph Fink was kind of a volunteer and was kind of hanging around the theater a lot and saw the show a lot and got to know a lot of us. And he was, trying to take a writing project, and he loved podcasts, and he thought, well, in order to get published, you need to pass all these gatekeepers and, send out scripts and things like that. But in order to make a podcast, literally you just need a microphone and a computer.
Yeah.
And he loved podcasts, and he wanted to kind of make a podcast that was unlike anything he had heard up to that point. So he had this idea for a fictional, ongoing podcast that was, a long-form storytelling about this small Southwest desert town where strange things happen, but everybody just kind of accepts it as just the way life is in this small little town. And he came to me after I did a play with the Neos just about how difficult it is, kind of the similar woe of a writer, but from a voiceover actor point of view of I'm doing all the right things, I have an agent, I have a demo reel, but I just can't seem to find the project that busts it open for me, that kind of knocks down that door. He's like, well, I have this project, and would you mind doing the pilot? It kind of requires this sort of radio announcer voice. And I read it, and I'm a huge horror movie fan, and immediately I was like, oh, it's David Lynch, it's David Cronenberg, it's it's all these other, it's H.P. Lovecraft, it's Stephen King, it's Neil Gaiman, it's Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, it's Roald Dahl, it's all these things that I kind of grew up loving, and having worked with Jeffrey, the other writer, I kind of knew their dry sense of humor, and I kind of knew how to find the humor in the script, so that way it wasn't just all sort of gloom and doom, but that was it. And so literally he loaned me a microphone, and I recorded the pilot, and then I got a $30 mic, snowball mic, and we just started recording the podcast on the regular.
Were you familiar with podcasts prior to that? Because it's still kind of a new technology, a new form of media, but it's the same as the soap operas back in the 30s.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I had heard of podcasts before. I remember when I was in Washington D.C., I did the D.C. Fringe Festival, and they did a podcast about the Fringe. So each show in the Fringe did a 15-minute segment, and someone had explained to me what I was like. Do you record it in a pod? I don't understand what is this thing? But I eventually figured it out. And then, I listened to a couple Bowery Boys and Savage Lovecast and things like that. But mostly I didn't really listen to podcasts at all. So this was totally new ground for me. And kind of any podcast I had heard of or people recommended to me, it was all new. So I kind of jumped in with both feet. And to this day, I like to dabble in podcasts, but it's not really my genre of entertainment, I guess. I'm a much more visual person, so I like movies and TV and theater, things like that. But I do every once in a while, it's really good on commutes to work or road trips or things like that. It's perfect.
What other ones have you dabbled in?
Oh gosh, I mean, Thrilling Adventure Hour was kind of they were really amazing to us when we first started, and I listened to a lot of Thrilling Adventure Hour because it's the same sort of format in that it's an old time radio show.
Yeah.
Except they really dove into that genre, so they're trying to make it sound like The Shadow or these good old fashioned radio shows.
Yeah.
But with a very modern comedy. And they were very they perform in Brooklyn every once in a while, and they perform in LA, and they were really helpful in kind of helping us discover how to take the podcast and then put it onto stage.
Okay.
But beyond that, like it's been a while. I think in the car we listened to the other day we listened to Lore, which is really good. And then there's a new podcast called Nancy that I think just started.
I haven't heard that one.
It's just like sort of LGBT issues.
Okay.
Just sort of like every week they pick like a topic and it's these two really funny, interesting people just having a conversation about that topic, and they have interviews, and it's just really interesting to me, and it's something that I find fascinating.
With the type of show that Night Vale is, and how it got started, and a lot of the fan art and whatnot, how have you seen your character, Cecil? How have you seen like the fan art portray you? Do you agree with some of the?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't agree or disagree with any of it. I mean, I think fan art is just that. It's by the fans and it's for the fans. It's not up to the creator to be like, nope, you didn't get it right. And also because there's no visual representation of this world. So it really does kind of put that world in the hands of the fans and goes, here, draw a faceless old woman. And some people draw her like an old woman with like sort of a no face, and some people draw her as like, her face has been ripped off, and either of them are correct. But it's not up to the creators to be like, you are right and you are wrong.
How do you see Cecil?
Does it matter?
No, I guess not. I guess the only one that's really like fleshed out fully is Hiram.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like, that's the only...
It's pretty like, he's a dragon, he's, yeah. I mean, it's, as, like, what Cecil looks like, and, like, is literally the last thing on my mind when I'm recording the show. Like, it doesn't, I'm going to give the same performance whether he's wearing purple pants or black pants. There's no, like, and also at the same time, to me, characters are way more defined by their actions than they are by sort of physical external things. Like, you can be a good person, you can do good things, you can be a bad person, do bad things, but, does it matter if they're handsome or ugly or tall or short or thin or fat, whatever, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Do you ever get the scripts back from Joseph and Jeffrey and just think like, man, what were you guys thinking when you wrote this? Like,
sometimes, I mean, it's more about creative problem solving. It's less about, oh my God, what the hell is this? And it's more about, how do I figure this out? Because every actor gets a script and they have to kind of creative problem solve. Like if you're doing Hamlet, you're like, well, we've got to figure out like, what is the world that he's living in? What are the relationships between the characters? What are, how does he feel at any given moment? What is he trying to achieve? What is he trying to get out of a situation? And it's the same thing with the Night Vale script. And oftentimes I think the fun of that is, like finding the obvious answer and then doing something completely different. So if it's a commercial, let's say, which there's plenty of commercials in Night Vale for very real products.
Oh yeah, those are hilarious.
But like trying to find a way to turn that on its head and be like, oh, we all know what a commercial sounds like, but now we're going to give you a commercial that sounds nothing like anything you've ever heard. And that's way more fun for me as a sort of performer.
Do you have a lot of say in the scripts? Do you send back notes, or do you just...
No, not at all. I mean, I get the script, and if like literally the only things that I ask about are if there's a typo. I'm like, wait, you said, here it was on, this street name, but 2 pages later it's on a different. Is this a different? Am I reading it wrong, or is this a typo? Or I'll, I kind of make character choices, like I kind of give voices to these characters, and and sometimes I think one time only, the writers have come back and said, okay, that was a little too far, pull it back and make it more real. Just because we have plans for that character later, and if she's an unhinged axe murderer, then it doesn't really jive with what is happening 3 episodes later.
There's been a lot of special guests, like Will Wheaton. Who have been your favorite special guests so far?
I mean, Will is amazing. Will is literally the kindest human. Like, he's so amazing. Like, when I record with people, if they're based in New York, I literally just invite them to my apartment. I make them a cup of tea, and we sit down and we chat, and we talk about the script, and then we just record it. But if it's someone who lives in LA, like Will Wheaton, Molly Quinn, Felicia Day, people like that, we generally record over Skype. And we'll like have a little phone call, and then we'll just record our separate ends, you know, kind of hit record at the same time.
Oh, that's cool.
And then send both of those things to Joseph to kind of mash them together. But like, I think the last time I had to record with Will, we were on the phone for like 2 hours together. Only 20 minutes of that was actually working. Oh, nice. You know, so it was really fun. I mean, yeah, we've had so many great guests. You know, one of my favorites is Symphony Sanders is like kind of now she's a mainstay of the touring production. She plays Tamika Flynn. And she's just like a really amazing, she brings an amazing energy to the stage as well as to the podcast. So it's always fun to have her around.
That's cool. Who would you like to have on the show? Like, are there any, you know, celebrities out there that's like, we need to try and get this person?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I always thought it'd be really great to get Ian McShane as the voice of, was it Megan Wallaby? Who is like a young girl, like a 10-year-old girl who is trapped in the hand of... she's just a hand, and then they sewed it onto a Russian sailor. So now you have this Russian sailor who is really just a 10-year-old girl, and I thought he'd be really funny at that. Yeah, but people like that, like I think, you know, it'd be really interesting to have... I mean, it's always interesting to find diverse and interesting voices, diverse and interesting people, especially in the live show. And especially because podcasts, you know, a lot of them are kind of straight white comedian dudes talking to other straight white comedian dudes. So it's always good to kind of like get something different in there, you know. So, you know, like when we're in London, we're in England, we've added Emma Franklin, who is a really amazing transgender performance artist, and she is like punk rock, you know, like in her performance art. But it's great because it gives her a chance to kind of do something different, and kind of like she plays this sort of Margaret Thatcher, Donald Trump sheriff. You know, that's like very blustery and just what did I just say? Does it matter? It doesn't really matter. But she brings this like really amazing energy to that, and she looks gorgeous on stage, and it gives her a chance to like, you know, kind of play around and like play this sort of totally different character than her normal work. But she's a blast to hang out with, and hopefully she'll be back in the Europe tour.
Cool. And you guys are going to do the Europe tour in July, I think, right?
No, it's a little bit later. It's like
fall.
September, October.
Okay. The next part of the tour is in
Yeah, we're doing in true Night Vale fashion, we're going to the hottest parts of the United States
of course.
in July. But it'll be great.
What has been your favorite place to visit so far?
Oh gosh, there's so many, because it's like there's places that you know you're gonna love, like Seattle or San Francisco, where you're like, yeah, this is amazing, or maybe you've been there like that. But then there's always the surprises, like Eugene, Oregon, or oh gosh, we had a really great time in Ithaca. Was really beautiful, and just like getting to go like hiking, you know, is really amazing. So you're always often surprised by like these little pockets in America. You know, maybe you have a day off there and you're like, what are we going to do in the day off in Eugene? And then you're like, whoa, there's like, this is a really great town. And like, you know, when you're away from home for sometimes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes just going to a really nice food co-op and going grocery shopping and doing those things that remind you of home can be very therapeutic. You know, and you know, we try to eat healthy on the road, and so it's, you know, and try to like stay comfortable, and sometimes just going to see a movie, like just a big silly action movie, can really just make a day, you know.
The show seems to be very positive towards LGBTQ issues and whatnot, and it seems like an ideal place because no one makes a big deal about you and Carlos, and in the book with Josh being a shapeshifter, like it's obvious, it's, you know, it's, you know, part and parcel to issues now. Has there been a big following? Like,
oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's, you know, I think, you know, I'm an old person now. I'm approaching old personhood, you know, and sort of like looking at the millennial generation, that where technology and information is so instant and so instantaneous. And, you know, when I was a teenager, you kind of had to search and hunt for your tribe. You know, it was a lot of zines, and it was a lot of going to shows and like, you know, hanging out at Perkins at 2:00 in the morning, and you know, like doing all that sort of stuff. But it was all in like kind of real time, or in real, you know, in real space. But now I find that like the internet, Tumblr, Reddit, Twitter has kind of opened up the possibility to find people who are like you, who are like-minded to you, who may live on the other side of the world, and they can then kind of offer support and like, you know, like there's a feeling of solidarity and of community that is not based in kind of the real space of the world. And I think the fact that we are an internet podcast, you know, kind of is a boon to that. And so I think the popularity of Night Vale in the LGBT community, especially, has kind of become this thing where, you know, like a young, you know, like little 16-year-old, you know, lesbian can like find this show and be like, oh my gosh, this show speaks to me on this very deep level. And then I can share it with this essentially a pen pal, you know, who lives in Australia. And then they can share it, and then it gets tossed around the world, and that's how it kind of builds. I mean, and I think that because the information is so readily available, you know, young people have gotten very savvy with being preached at or talked down to or tokenized. And I think Night Vale is a really good example of, you know, the gay character, like sort of my character, Cecil, and his boyfriend Carlos, like it's not the main thrust of the show. It's not about a gay relationship. It's about a town in which gay people live. And isn't that like, that's way more normal. And that's what we're kind of like all, you know, like hoping to get out of it. You know, the idea that, you know, relationships are not the end all be all of anyone's life. You know, like it's a part of your life, but there's tons of other things that make you you. And those relationships and that love is tied up in it. It's, you know, very important, but it's, you know, there's still other aspects of your life that inform who you are. And I think people really responded to that. You know, and especially it just happened very organically in the show. And it wasn't our intention to have a gay relationship at the center of it. It just happened. You know, and me being a gay actor, like I kind of like read between the lines because, you know, as a gay person, you're used to reading between the lines when taking in straight media, and you're like, oh, I wish that, oh, is that person gay? Maybe there's a little like subtext there. And I kind of just turned that subtext up to like 9 or 10, and the writers, you know, who are both straight, you know, sort of picked up on their like, oh, I see where this could go. And then they started writing the episodes to that relationship.
Do you have a favorite episode, or do you have a favorite story arc, or? I
mean, I think the Strex Corp story arc is probably the strongest, in my opinion. You know, it was really It was interesting. It had a lot of really great characters. The sort of foil of Kevin and Cecil was really amazing. Kevin R. Free is an amazing actor, and it's a delight to work with him. And he's so friendly. And then casting him as a villain was even creepier because he is so friendly. But it was just like the most exciting storyline, and very relevant and very well thought out. Yeah.
I have some questions from Reddit and fellow Barnes & Noble booksellers.
Great.
So I think that was all of my questions.
Okay.
So let me double check. How far out do you guys record?
Generally, we try to have 2 or 3 episodes done and ready to go, just because our touring schedule is so heavy. And, you know, and it's like I'm at home for 2 months, and then I'm away for a month, and then, you know, it's a lot of back and forth. And it's very difficult to record on the road just because you never know the environment you're going to be in. And so we try to record as many as possible before tours happen. So generally 2 to 3 episodes out.
Okay. Yep, that was all my questions. Okay, so from do you have any other acting or side jobs right now?
At the moment, I mean, let's see, like last year I had a really great couple of episodes on this web series, The Outs, written by Adam Goldman. It's on Venmo. No, that's a PayPal. Vimeo, that's Vimeo, it. Yeah. It's really great. It was super fun. Right now, I think this summer I'm looking forward to. I'm guest hosting as the puzzle guru on NPR's Ask Me Another.
Okay.
A couple of times this summer. But for the most part, like Night Vale is kind of like the main thrust of it at the moment. But I'm always looking to do plays or film or TV or other voiceover work or things like that. It's just a matter of praying to the scheduling gods that everything kind of fits together, you know.
Let's see. Do you have a favorite warm-up phrase?
Oh, I do. Usually my favorite warm-up phrase is, there's a line from an earlier live show that was pink pulpy piles of post-existence. And it was in The Librarian, I want to say. But it's a really good microphone warm-up because you can tell how poppy how poppy the P's are. So I usually start with that one. And then from my acting school days, I had an acting teacher who every day we would warm up with the first paragraph of Lolita by Nabokov. So that's kind of my go-to, text to warm up with.
Do you ever have points where Cecil the character slips into your real life?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. On stage, we noticed this last time when we were here for Ghost Stories, you're a lot more animated than I thought you would be.
Okay.
Are you as animated when you record in your apartment?
No, it's different. Just because you're, like when you stand up in front of 900 people, knowing that much of your audience is far away, like you have to, like the people in the front row and the people in the back row have to have the same amount of show. Like you have to give them the same show. And so it's the difference between pointing like this and pointing like that.
It's very pantomime.
Yeah, like because you take your gestures and you take the emotions and you take the facial expressions and all that sort of stuff that the visual clues that is performance, and you kind of turn it up so that way it can be seen from the last row. Versus recording on the microphone, it's very focused and it's very narrow, and there's no need to be as animated because nobody can see you. Nobody can see the faces you're making. Nobody can see the gestures. And you're really just kind of focusing all of your energy into one point. It's more like acting on camera versus acting on stage.
Okay, yeah.
In this case, it's even one more step farther because there's no visual element. So it's acting in front of a microphone. It's really, you're just focusing all of your energy. And also you can kind of cozy up to the microphone, and like very quiet, intimate moments are very easy to do on the podcast, but they're a lot more difficult to do in a live venue when there's, somebody's getting up to go to the bathroom and somebody's trying to take a picture and, their dad is falling asleep and, whatever else is going on. It's a different style of performance. And I mean, it's just one of those things that I've been a theater actor since I was 15 years old. And, it's just kind of, it's just second nature to me to kind of go, just turn up the intensity on the television set,
That makes sense. I hear that a lot because I listen to a lot of the wrestling podcasts, and they have, where you have to play to the upper deck.
Exactly.
You can't just hit the ring like 3 times.
Yeah.
Way up here.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like living in New York City, I've seen my share of Broadway shows where kind of famous movie actors, who are great on film, do a play, and unless you're sitting in the first 5 rows, you don't see anything. Like you're like, wow, that was really boring. Because they're doing all of their acting with their face because they're used to acting for camera. But in, a 500-seat Broadway house, you can't see every little nuance. You have to kind of like turn it up the intensity.
They say that every theater has its own ghosts. Have you noticed any, like with this type of show?
Oh, sure.
With the paranormal and the
I mean,
sci-fi-ness of it.
Let's see. I think some of the most haunted places we've played. There's the Bing Crosby in Spokane, Washington. Is a very haunted, amazing old theater, and it was one that we just, you know, like some of us came early for sound check, and we walked in, we're like, wow, there's something really weird about this place. And then other actors would come, they're like, but every single person, when they walked in the door, they're like, something's, you know, we found a room where it sounded like there was just a person breathing in a corner. Yeah.
No bueno.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think the other really amazing theater that I got to perform in was in Newcastle in England. And it's literally the oldest theater that still has the original trapdoors.
Oh, wow.
Like that predate like the Drury Theater, like kind of these old theaters. And the stagehands were really amazing. They took me and John Bernstein, the musician, downstairs, and we got to like see all the. I mean, it's literally like theater history that still exists. And
that's awesome.
you know, they were like, oh, you see this is how they did peals of thunder. They would literally roll a cannonball around the stage to get that sort of rolling thunder.
Nice.
Well, unfortunately, the cannonball jumped the track at one point and crushed a man to death.
Oh.
Stagehand Bob apparently was his name, and now Stagehand Bob haunts stage left. And that was where I made my entrance. So, you know, I'm standing backstage waiting to go on, and I'm just like, okay, if I turn around, if I see a person here, I'm going to freak out. But, you know, but I've never had any, like I've never experienced anything malicious or malevolent or anything like that. Yeah.
Anything that you want to plug?
Anything that I want to plug?
Yeah.
No, that's it.
Okay.
Just, you know, come and see us when we're on tour in the summer in the sort of southern United States area, and then come and see us in Europe and in England this fall.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah,
and break a leg.
Yeah, thank you.